keep your options open and learn to be a jack of all trades, because I know that I have multiple skill sets and I didn't get those overnight. I've been writing for almost 10 years now. I've been doing photography for almost 10 years now. I taught myself video editing when I was at Morgan State, audio editing as well. And there's so many things that you could do with journalism related training that you don't, it doesn't have to just be the Washington Post or USA Today. And sometimes there might be more money in some of these other non-traditional newsroom type settings as well. But just at the end of the day, there's many things to do. And if you pigeonhole yourself, then you may be missing out on your blessing.
Sometimes you meet people who you just deem the life of the party. And a lot of times, with my experience, those are the ones that are the most successful. They have a reason to party. You may look at it and say, oh yeah, they party too much and they not doing nothing. Nah, that's not the case. Well, especially with today's guest, Benjamin McKnight III. Ben and I met at NABJ 17. Also, in the group chat, him and previous guest, Tremone Lucas, came up the ranks together at the illustrious Morgan State University. Well, as I told y'all before, going into that convention, I didn't have a lot of people from my class, but I had a lot of people I knew already a part of NABJ. But this core group of Morgan students, I clung to them and they clung to me. And it reminded me of the group that I went with in 2013. Well, Ben was one of those students, and on today's episode, you're going to learn about his career, how he struggled with post-graduation depression, and how, like myself, took an alternative route in his career and how it's paying off. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back as I have a great conversation with Benjamin McKnight III. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I have a good friend of mine. You guys remember when Tremone Lucas was on, and I discussed being sort of the OG to the Morgan State award-winning chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists, the student chapter. Well, we have another one of those award-winning members, the one and only my good friend, Ben McKnight III. What's up, Ben?
What's up? What's up? Glad to be here.
So, man, when we met, we're going into NABJ 17. The one thing I noticed about you was the life of the party. But you kept the entire clique. You kept everybody going, and I can't. And I remember you wore this shirt. You made a statement in New Orleans that year. You said, "Where was All Lives Matter?" Oh man, what was the year?
Oh man, I have to go on my Instagram to look at that because I still wear that shirt from time to time too.
Yeah, but what's going on, man? So, tell me what made you decide to get into journalism and photography?
Oh wow. Well, both of those things happened when I was in high school. So I'll start with journalism first, just because it was slightly before. Um, So backtrack a little bit. The high school that I went to, it was one of those specialty magnet school type situations, North Point High School in Waldorf, Maryland. And I went there going into the electronics program. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, I want to be a video game designer and all the crazy cool things that children think of. Well, I realized quickly that I was horrible at math and science. And also around that time, I did a paper for one of my English class my freshman year. And my teacher pulled me to the side. She said, hey, this is a really good paper. You should consider writing as a career when you grow up. And so, me wanting to figure things out early in life, I told myself, okay, this is fun. I like news as it is. I was always reading the newspaper in middle school and even elementary school. So, I decided on that then. Also joined the student newspaper the next year in high school. So I'd been writing since 2009, maybe 2010. So around that same time, when I picked up the camera, this was a situation where at my old church, my stepdad had bought a Nikon D90. And one morning before church, he just gave me the camera and said, "Hey, you're going to take pictures." And I just started taking pictures, no idea what I was doing, but people loved the pictures and I kept doing it, kept doing it. And eventually it turned into, you know what, I can make this a regular thing to supplement the journalism work that I do. And now, even without journalism, I can still go do photography, whether it's shooting athletic events or doing portraits for somebody. But yeah, I've been shooting just as long as I've been writing. Both of those things were instilled in me by an adult in my life early on.
So how long did it take you to get on manual mode?
So it didn't take too long actually. So that was my roughly sophomore year of high school when I picked up both. And so my first year at community college, shortly after high school, I took a photography class, and that's where I started learning how to shoot manual and editing and all the other stuff. Because before I was just click and go, and that was it. But I really started picking up tools of the craft in terms of photography in community college.
So I just want people to know that Ben's a photographer, not just someone who takes pictures. There's a difference. And, as a photographer myself, I ain't gonna lie, it took me a while to really get into manual mode. There was a
Right.
time where I was at a party and it was like somebody else was there taking pictures and I'm just sitting there snapping away and they come over to me. It's like, oh, well, do this and do that. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay. And later on, I realized I was like, wow. I mean, automatic or the preset settings to get it done, but when you take control of the camera, it's a whole different ball game, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. But one thing you hit on was being able to use that as a side hustle because a
Yeah.
lot of times, especially in our field, we see a lot of people who want to be behind in front of the camera. They want to
Hmm.
be the analyst, they want to be the anchor, and that's all good and fine. Can you just talk about when you really started utilizing photography? Because I've gotten on you on social media because I was like, "Hey man, jack those prices up." Look,
Oh man,
you
hey,
know,
you're not wrong at all, and I'm steadily bringing those up. But no, so like even before I settled on deciding I wanted to be a writer and then photographer, when I first thought about the possibility of going into journalism, I was thinking broadcast. Everyone sees the people on TV. You see the Stephen A. Smiths for those sports fans, Michael Wilbons, Mark Lamont Hills for those who are into politics, who actually got a chance to interview at Morgan, but I'll talk about that later. But those type of people, you see them and you want to be like them. But I decided that my public speaking is only but so good, and and the better that I got at writing, I realized, this is the crap that I want to do. I want to be away from the limelight. And so then same thing with photography. It was a matter of, okay, I'm already behind the scenes everywhere else. I'm going to do the same with photography. I'm just going to snap my pictures. I'll take the credit when it's given, but I love taking pictures. And it's great because I only do it when I want to. I know I've met a peer of mine who was once a wedding photographer, and he ended up having to stop because got to a point where he felt as if his hobby was giving him too much stress. So for me, I always take that approach with photography. I only take the things that I want to do and then shoot for leisure as well because I want to keep enjoying doing photography.
that's a good thing right there. I'm glad you brought that up. Because I don't think a lot of people don't understand that, you know, you like it, but you could say screw it
Right.
at any given time because
Uh,
when it's not fun anymore, why are you doing it? You know what I mean? I know before I was really trained, I was do church events.
uh,
And I remember being stressed out and I was nowhere like I said, wasn't trained. I wasn't even back in school yet. And I remember telling my mother, I'm not doing nothing for people over 50. And she was like, why? I said, because they got all these, they want you to make magic, the
mhm,
pictures. Now, I knew how to use Photoshop, but
right.
they want you to take cut this person out, put them on the right side. Like what? No.
The longer you do it, you realize that there's certain people you just don't want to deal with anymore.
Exactly. And I've gotten better, but man. Now let me ask you this. What made you decide to attend Morgan State University?
Oh, so this is gonna go into other parts that you may have had questions about later, so I might as well just jump in
Let's
now.
jump right in.
All right, cool. So Morgan State was not my top two, top five, may have been top 10. So my senior year of high school, I was always a solid student, but as we all know, college isn't cheap, and you need to be a little more than solid to get a lot of money to go to school. And mind you, way back in the day, my mom had told me, hey, you're going to need to get scholarships to go to school because we're only going to have but so much to help you, which really meant, you need to get some money from somewhere else. So I have this decent GPA and decent SAT and ACT scores, and I'm applying to schools. I applied to 11 colleges my senior year of high school, got into every single one of them. Morgan State was one of them. Both my mom and my biological dad graduated from Florida A&M, so I knew I was destined to be a Rattler. They didn't offer me a whole lot of money. What other schools was I looking at? South Carolina State at one point, Coppin State. I actually almost ended up at Coppin. I love the Coppin folks, but I decided at the last second it wasn't for me. My
I'm
mom
glad
was
you made that decision.
well, see, my mom wasn't glad I made the decision at first because they were giving me the best offer in terms of money, but they didn't have and they still don't have a true journalism program. And I told myself, I'm not going to put myself in that type of situation. So senior year passes, I graduate. I still don't know exactly where I'm going to school. And about 2 weeks after I graduate, I'm sitting on my couch playing my Xbox, playing Call of Duty. And my stepdad comes downstairs. He's like, hey, son, you need to figure out a plan soon or we're going to be at the Army recruiter's office. I thought he was playing. And so I kept playing Call of Duty. A week later, he comes back, hey, son, let's take a ride. Okay. Next thing I know, I'm at the recruiter station.
Wait, real quick. What was your rank on Call of Duty? Was it worth it?
Man, I prestige elite. It was not worth it. Oh, man. No, actually, it might have been. But so anyways, I joined the Army. I also start going to community college and with the mindset of, okay, in at least 2 years or less, I'm going to be out of here and at a 4-year institution. So fast forward a year later, I go through my basic training and my job training and all that. And I'm back in community college for one more semester. At this point, I tell myself, okay, I'm going to one of two schools, Morgan or Towson, both of which I got into the first time around, both of which I knew people in their ROTC program. And I had decided at that point that I wanted to do ROTC within the Army. And so I call Towson and I say, hey, I'm a soldier. I want to do ROTC, this, that, and third. And they tell me, okay, well, we're going to have to evaluate you for a semester before we offer you a scholarship. I didn't have that kind of time to wait. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll talk to you guys another time. I call Morgan State's ROTC department, say, hey, my name is Benjamin McKnight III. And before I can even go any further, the person on the other end of the line, hold up, say your name again. Hi, I'm Benjamin McKnight III. So you're the son of Benjamin McKnight Jr. Yes, I'm the third. But so lo and behold, the recruiting officer at Morgan State's ROTC department at that time was roommates with my biological dad in college.
Wow.
At Florida A&M. They both were in ROTC together. They go way back. So we start chatting it up about that. Next thing I know, I'm reapplying to Morgan State, got in within 2 weeks. And ROTC they hadn't offered me a scholarship yet, but I got so much other scholarship money between my GPA being high enough to get into the honors college at Morgan and getting a transfer scholarship and then a bunch of other things going on. So by the time I got to campus, I only paid out of pocket for like maybe 20% of my first semester, if that. And then after that, it was smooth sailing.
Wow. So just talk about like how was your community college experience? Because I went that same route as well, and I tell a lot of people you did the smart thing. See, I took 2 years off 3 years off. It was supposed to be one, but I ended up taking 3 years off. And to be honest, it took me 3 years to get through community college. But to me, I felt that I built better. Well, one, if I'd have went now, you see how the School of Global Journalism look what y'all got there.
Oh yeah.
When we was there was no name on the building. Um, so before that, it was they were still editing with SD and tape decks. So I came at the right time,
hmm
but I know for me, I said like I'm glad I did go to community college route. Talk about your community college experience.
So my community college experience, it was funny because I'd been around that school a lot early in my time living in Maryland because my mom actually used to work there for a while. And so I was very familiar with the campus and how things went and pretty much had an inside scoop on how to put myself in a good situation to be ready to leave when it was time to leave. But also, even though with community college you end up seeing a lot of people that you went to high school with, I
Hmm.
still ended up making more friends with people from other areas of the county and even outside of the county as well. They also gave me an opportunity to continue refining my writing skills because when I got there, I joined the school's event staff, and the event staff was primarily helping set up events and mainly athletic events at the school. So all the sports teams, we'd help them get ready for the competitions in terms of, say, setting up volleyball nets or making sure that the chalk on the soccer field was lined up. But they gave me a specific duty of you're gonna write the game recaps for the athletic teams. So I was able to keep refining that skill, and it was great for me to be home for that year and a half or 2 years if you count my hiatus when I was away doing army stuff because I, as much as I wanted to be away from home and at a 4 year institution and getting that kickstart of life, there were some things that I just wasn't exactly ready for.
Hmm.
And I feel as if I would have went to a 4 year institution right away, some some aspects of my life might not be as secure now if I compared to when I went to the community college route first.
Okay. So you enter Morgan State University, and what year did you enter?
Fall 2014.
Okay, so yeah, that was the following year after.
Yeah.
Well, 2 more years, 2 years after. Well, yeah, almost. So it was like not the next year, but the year after next.
Right.
So, what was your first impression of the school?
Oh man. Wow. So I get there and once again I start seeing some familiar faces, but it's mostly new faces for me at this point. So I got there and I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna just relax for this first semester. I'm gonna try to get my lay of the land and have a little fun. And I'm mind you, I'm transferring in as a sophomore, but I had knocked out so many general education requirements that I was able to start taking journalism classes right out the gate. And literally, next thing I know, I'm already in a meeting for the MSU spokesman. Like I told myself I wasn't gonna get my hands into anything, and then boom, I'm already in a student publication. So that was interesting, kind of just getting thrown into the mix because as much as I kept saying I wasn't going to, that wasn't in my character. I knew at some point I was going to be involved in something and kind of building myself up again because once again, I'm in a very new area, even though there's a couple people that I know here and there trying to get my feet wet, but I couldn't stay poolside for so long before I just jumped right in.
Wow. So you get with the spokesman. So what was some of your highlights?
Ooh, man. The spokesman was an experience. So you mentioned Trey before we got on. He was one of the first people that I met when I got onto the spokesman. A handful of other people, in fact, Terrence, who he mentioned in his interview, another person that I met through the spokesman first. And I knew that I wanted to be in charge of something within the spokesman soon, but I didn't know how soon that was going to happen just because I was new and there was other people who had been around long enough. But so I get to the spokesman fall 2014. I'm doing my other school stuff. 2015, the spring of 2015, the advisor for the spokesman at the time, Karen Hooper, she invites me to go on a journalism trip to Selma, Alabama. It was around the anniversary of the Bloody Sunday, and we are doing a joint project with West Virginia University.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that. We end up winning an award for it. Next thing I know, she emails me and says, "Hey, you should consider going for editor in chief of the Spokesman." I didn't think this was going to happen that fast, but I said, okay, I might as well apply. It'd be nice to have that experience. I applied, interview. Next thing I know, fall 2015, I'm now editor in chief of the student newspaper. And
And
I
you're
did
a
that for
junior at this point.
junior at this point. So my last 2 years at Morgan State, in addition to doing still being in the Army and dealing with ROTC and whatever other things I was doing on campus, I was editor in chief of the student newspaper. And so early in the fall of that semester, Professor Hooper left, and we were trying to figure out who our advisor would be. And then in steps Professor Kent. And almost at this point, almost every Morgan person that you interview is going to have a Professor Kent story. And but the thing is, he's the GOAT, and that's just really what it was. When he stepped into the role as the paper's advisor, so I had him already for his sports writing class, so I kind of knew his get down, and
Uh-huh.
I was prepared for anything that he might have thrown at us. But one of the main things that he tried to get across to us early on was that yes, we're students, but we're training to be professionals, and we need to act like it in every which way. And so he took that same approach with the spokesman. And even if that meant sometimes us editors might have gotten fussed at a little bit because we slacked on something that we shouldn't have, okay, but we get it because he had the experience that we were trying to get to eventually. So he steps in, he becomes our paper's advisor. I'm editor in chief. I have a team around me, and Trey's on that team, eventually becoming my managing editor. Whew, man, we did a lot. We covered a lot. We had very good, talented writers on our staff. We had people like Malik Obi on the staff, Devin Ashby, Javon was our video editor at one point. We had a lot of things going on, a
And
lot
see,
of
to
good things.
me, that's an all-star team.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, shoot, I might as well say Zaina's name too because she
Yep.
was on the staff and very effective at what she did. And there's many other people that I may be forgetting to name right now, and I apologize to all of them. But some of the experiences that we had on the spokesman, I knew would propel me professionally. And it was everything good, bad, and anything between. Like, we all know that more with Morgan State being in Baltimore, that comes with the good and the bad. And I think one of the most trying, but I guess you could say better developing times. I remember we had a student within the SGJC who, rest his soul, he ended up dying from an on-campus incident. This was February 1st, 2016. Yeah, my junior year. And covering that was the first time that I really covered something so real in terms of someone's death.
Hmm.
And just dealing with that situation and learning how to handle these things from a professional standpoint was very we learned a lot about each other as a staff, but also we learned a lot about the craft and how we should do things. Like I was calling Johns Hopkins and Trey was calling WBAL and the Baltimore City Police and all these other people. We were trying to get all this information. And Professor Kent told us as sad of a situation as this is also real life. And these are things that you may be having to cover in the future and you need to know how to do it right. So, and even then, we had also a bunch of great moments within the spokesman as well. I can't remember this might have been Trey's idea, but we ended up electing a Morganite of the Year. And so we just talk among the staff and knowing what we knew about the campus and who was doing what on campus, we nominate people to be Morganite of the Year and do a big feature on them about the things that they did for the year. And that was a really fun thing that we did for a couple years. And just another example of where constantly on the grind with the spokesman to make sure that we're putting out content that the students want to see, but also that they need to see. Because we would have plenty of times where people would tell us what they think we should write, but we'd also have to remind people, hey, we're a news outlet. We're not the school's public relations department. But you're gonna get this news, and this is gonna be pertinent to you guys' life on campus. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But this is the news.
Well, see, I'm gonna just go ahead and say this. That's one of the things I could appreciate about you guys coming in after us, because no disrespect to the people I have went to school with. I wasn't really a part of Spokesman until my last year, and that was really shout out to Chanel Starling. She was, to me being a senior, she may have actually been a sophomore, junior, but she was doing, like, she was a sports writer, and she was covering not just the Morgan stories, but she wanted to cover like the high school basketball championship for Baltimore City. And the way we met was they asked me to go film like highlights of the game with her. But prior to that, all I remember was people just doing these stories on, oh, this person's doing this in Morgan, this person's doing that, and not really those local stories where you guys were essentially keeping everybody informed of the news that was around them. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you also you guys had to cover the Freddie Gray, right?
Oh man, we did, and we I don't think we got it in as deep as we could have.
Really?
But and I think in part just because of us being students and having a handful of other things going on. But we definitely did tackle it and do a couple pieces on just what was going on with that and what was going on in Baltimore City. Yeah, that was whew.
Because I was gonna
That,
say, didn't that lead to y'all winning chapter of the year? Like, wasn't that like one of the points that kind of helped y'all
oh
win?
man, and see, my memory is fuzzy right now, so I might not be the best person to ask that specifically. But I do know that we put in a lot of legwork in, like you said, covering local things, Baltimore related.
Mm.
Because on one hand, yes, we're a student newspaper, and what's happening on the campus is our primary focus. But there was a lot of things that happened within Baltimore City
Mm.
that either could be spun back to Morgan State or just be, hey, this is local news. You guys are students in this community. You should be aware of the local news that's going on.
So here's what I have to say, and this is where a lot of people in your class will always say to me, or um, shout out to Trey, and shout out to Kristen West. They always tell me I wear the pom poms for Mr. Wickham because I'm a Dwayne Wickham guy. But here's the thing: one of the things he said was in his vision that he laid out to us was that he was going to get people in there to actually that had dirt on their hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some journalists and producers that was fresh out of the field, because there were a lot of people who had been teachers for too long that they had kind of forgotten the way things were going.
Right.
And that was the thing. So when you hear somebody that like a Professor Kent, well, he was there, but hearing him being like kind of the advisor for the spokesman, you get an opportunity to see, hey, this is somebody who really enjoys journalism. I remember he would come in the office to see First Take on and have a fit because he said that's not real journalism.
He
And
still says it.
yeah. So, hearing that you guys getting a chance to do that was like, all right, you guys, I mean, y'all essentially put the spokesman on the map. So I got to give you your props for that.
And I think what helped us out was the when I had transferred to Morgan that semester, they stopped doing print. It was straight digital at that point. So it gave us more time to focus on the actual stories and then doing supplementary things like video pieces and photo galleries and things of that nature. Because back when it was still print, people had to focus on putting the layout together as well and then going off to wherever it was to get these printed out. So once things went straight digital, that just gave us that much more time to focus on the content that we are putting out versus laying things out and all the logistics that goes into running a print newspaper.
Yeah, and so you was about to touch on some of the best interviews you did. So you get who would you say were some of the top interviews you did when you was with the spokesman?
Ooh, man. Wow. You're really making me go back in my memory bank. So a person who, here's a good one. So we have an alum of Morgan State University, General Raymond Scott Dingle. He's a product of the Morgan State University Bear Battalion, which is our ROTC department. And so I went to write a story when he got his first general star. So in the army, there's four levels of being a general: one, two, three, 4 stars. And so the first star is brigadier general. And I went to his promotion ceremony that first semester of me being the editor in chief, and I wrote about that and just getting to talk to him about his experiences at Morgan and how Morgan helped shape his future was a great time. And it was one of those things where I had to make sure that I didn't go in too deep of the conflict of interest with me also being an ROTC. But I got the okay from Professor Kit, so it was like, okay, this is go time. And that was a really, really good interview. I got to talk to both General Dingle and his now late father, rest his soul. But that was a really good interview. I had a great time talking to them.
Okay, so then you're with Vox Media, right?
So, so it's Vox Optima LLC.
Vox
So,
Optima. I'm sorry.
no, 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 it's all good because most people when they see Vox, they think Vox Media Group, and we're not that. So the company that I work for now, we're a public relations based company that does contracting work for various entities, primarily the Department of Defense. And it's funny because I had no I had no idea that I'd be into the public relations world this early. I knew that it might happen eventually, in part with the things that I want to do with my armor career in the future. But my whole mindset of coming out of college was I'm going to be in a traditional newsroom and I want to be a sports writer. Sports writing was just that was the end goal for me. I just knew that was going to be it. But and I'll just go into a little more of that post college life because I said this on Facebook a while back that post graduation depression is real. my my first year out of school was it was very much a learning experience. I was applying to places left and right, and one of the things that got me, or two of the things that got me, the first thing was I didn't have any internships in school, any true internships. I worked for the spokesman and that was a paid position, but I didn't have any internships. And I would not suggest that for anyone. I was just in a peculiar situation with my ROTC requirements that there are many times that I wanted to apply for a certain internship, but I was expected to be doing this specific Army training at this time. And so coming out of school, I didn't have any experience outside of school. And so shortly before I graduated, I remember I met Sam Davis at this thing that we had going on at Morgan where we're talking to a board of trustees for the Knight Foundation to get more money for the school. And I got tabbed last minute to be one of the speakers and to present about the spokesman. And so I did my presentation along with Trey and Penelope Blackwell.
Hmm.
They covered some other topics of the SGJC. And so that day I met Sam Davis
Shout out
and,
to Sam Davis, my mentor.
and I met Gary D. Howard.
Oh, the
Exact. Oh
OG.
yeah. So and so my conversation with both of them was night and day. So Sam told me, "Hey, you did really well. I like the work you guys are doing. Send me an email." Gary told me, "Hey, send me your resume right now." Except for my resume wasn't exactly what it needed to be at the moment. And
Oh.
lesson here, stay ready so you ain't gotta get ready.
Uh-huh.
I hadn't stayed ready at that moment. So I'm scrambling trying to type this email with my resume. And Gary's on me. Hey, where's the email? Where's the email? But that was that. I ended up sending it to him, and now me and Gary have a great relationship now. But so Sam gets my resume, and he recommends me to be interviewed for a newspaper at Fort Meade that falls under the Baltimore Sun Media Group. And so I interviewed with them, and then literally the day of my commissioning ceremony, 2 days before graduation, they emailed me back and say, "Hey, we like your work, but we decided to go with another candidate." So I'm like, "Oh man, this is how it's gonna start." So that whole summer, I'm applying for jobs, applying for jobs. I have to go away to do some more army training for a little bit, come back, still applying for jobs. Nothing's hidden. Go into the new year in 2018, nothing's still hitting. I did have an interview with the Chronicle of Philanthropy, but that didn't work out. So eventually I told myself, okay, I need to get a just some holdover job because I need to pay my bills, but also I'm about to be gone in a few months to do yet again more army training. So I become a waiter. I do that for a little bit. June hits, I'm off on the west in out in Arizona doing more army stuff. So that's where Vox Optima comes into play because my last couple weeks while I was out there, I stopped. So backtrack. My first few weeks when I was out there, I was applying to at least 7, 8 jobs every Sunday because Monday through Friday I'm focused on my coursework. Saturday I'm relaxing. Sunday was apply to jobs. But once again, nothing was hitting. So the last couple weeks, we're going into our final project for the class, and I switch up my job application style, and I started using ZipRecruiter.
Mm-hmm.
I had always been iffy about that service before, but my parents kept telling me, "Hey, just try it out." And then I was listening to Bomani Jones's Right Time podcast, and I kept hearing ads for it. So I was like, you know what? This might be a sign. Set up my profile, start applying for stuff. And so Vox Optima was one of the people that got my resume. And so they called me. I'm in it's the morning time. I'm getting ready for class, and I was running late actually when they called me. Well, my current boss, he says, "Hey, is this Benjamin McKnight the third? I got your resume. I want to talk to you about a possible job." And I say, "Yes, this is him." So we get to talking a little bit, and he's telling me about the company and asked me if this is something that I might be interested in. So I say, "Sure." I mean, I'm at this point, I'm just trying to have a job for when I come back home because I'm a couple weeks from graduating. And I send him my resume. A week goes by, last couple of days of class. Once again, I'm still finishing up the final project for that course. And I get a call. Once again, I'm running late. I always happen to be running late. And so he says, "Hey, like your resume, like your work. I'd like to offer you a job." And I almost dropped my phone on everything. I
Wow.
At this point, I'm like, wow, it took me a year and almost 6 months, and I finally have a job offer. So I just accepted it. I get the offer letter, sign it, send it back. I'm like, okay, that's taken care of. But what exactly am I doing? So so the so with my company, I'm assigned to do writing for the Navy, and most of the people that I write about are naval engineers. I mentioned earlier how I'm horrible at math and science, and I'm dealing with scientists on a daily basis now.
Welcome to my world.
And so literally I'll go into interviews to talk to people about some of the projects they're working on or something big that's happening on the post that I'm at. And what they say to me will often go in one ear and out the other. But it's cool because you record the interview, you transcribe the interview, and I'm much better at reading information and processing it versus hearing information and trying to process it. And so I'm able to turn that into, okay, even if you don't know what these people are talking about, you're going to understand by the end of the article that I just wrote what they're trying to convey.
Wow. So it's funny, like, it's something we both have in common is, you know, um, being essentially sports people working in science.
Right.
Now, have you had an opportunity to implement sports techniques into it?
So I have not. And I don't have an issue with that. So it's so when I got to Morgan and I started doing my things with the spokesman, one of the other things that Professor Kent and many of our other professors, Professor Cabrera, Professor Ship, handful of other people telling us, you need to be good at writing various subjects because you never know what your job may be. And so I took that idea and took as many other journalism electives that was outside of the sports world to make sure that I was well rounded, whether it was international reporting or investigative journalism, political reporting, things of that nature. So even though I had no idea what exactly I was getting myself into with what I do now, and even though I'm not able to really use sports per se, I'm able to use the fact that I familiarize myself with so many different types of writing so that I can kind of turn what I'm looking at in front of me on my computer into something that makes sense. And it's one of those things where all the training that I had, and I'm forever thankful to Morgan State and the School of Global Journalism and Communications because I remember a few months after I had started at my job, one of my editors pulled me to the side and she said, "Hey, what's your deal? Like, tell me a little more about yourself." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she just asked for my background and my education, things of that nature. So I start going down a list of I've done this, this, and this. And I was say, "Well, what makes you ask that?" And she tells me, "Well, you're actually the only person in our office that has a straight up journalism degree, and we could tell by your writing." And she was saying that as a compliment. And getting that level of praise from someone who's supposed to refine my work and make it make even more sense just felt so good because going into the situation I didn't know exactly how it would turn out if I'd possibly be needing to look for another job very soon. But no, that is not the case. My editors and my coworkers are very impressed with the way that I write and the way I'm able to make sense out of things that don't make the most sense to us because of the training and the background that I have.
Man, that's awesome. So what's been your highlights?
Oh man. Oh, so one story that I did write, and I actually need to put this on my personal portfolio. So last year, one of my now former editors, or a boss of one of my editors, she had emailed me asking me if I wanted to write this story the about the Naval Sea Systems Command and how they're trying to get more employees coming from HBCUs. And the reason for her sending that email was because NAVC was an entity that had been voted as a top 10 recruiter of HBCUs by, ooh, I wish I could remember the name of the magazine off the top of my head, but it's a magazine that talks about black people in engineering and science technology in the STEM field. There we go. That's what I was looking for. But so every year, this magazine votes on basically top 10 landing places for STEM majors from HBCUs. And she knew that I came from an HBCU and it might be a story that I was interested in. And working on that story was so great because I got to interact with a handful of people where I work who are also from HBCUs. So one person that I interviewed, they at one point attended Wiley College, which was the subject of the Great Debaters movie. Another lady I got to interview is from North Carolina A&T, and anyone who knows me knows that I spend a decent amount of time at A&T. So that was a fun interview as well. And just working on that story, my everyone around me could see how invested I was in that specific story, and they were all very, very, very satisfied with the end result. So that's probably my favorite story that I've worked on. But some of the other ones that I've done, I've gotten tabbed to do reoccurring things. So, like one of the big things in the engineering world is getting patents for stuff.
Yep.
And so, right now, I'm working on a project to write a handful of articles about different engineers getting patents within the last year. So, that's just another thing that They see my skill set and say, hey, because of what you can do, we'd like you to do this for us.
Now, have you ever gone to the National Association of Science Writers convention?
Wow, so that's I've actually never heard of that until just now, and that's this is why I know this is why I'm friends with you, Brian, because I can grab stuff from you as well, because I will definitely be looking that up.
Yeah, so most of the time, my team, as you know, at Johns Hopkins, being a communications specialist, we do we put out content for journalists, and
Mhm.
hope so. That includes the scientists come out with new studies, and we write the article, or the press releases. Boom, and I produce videos to help tell that story because journalists are millennials, and they don't always want to read 300 long
Right.
400, 500 words. So while most of my team goes to while I go to NABJ every year, a lot of
Mhm.
my team go to NSAW. So it's the National Association of Science Writers. So yeah, I was wondering, and then I think they also have it's called Triple AS. I don't know what those acronyms stand for off the top of my head,
I'm gonna save it
but
to my notes.
yeah, but I think that would probably be something cool. And I know one of the things is that for the National Association of Science Writers, we are looking to, kind of recruit more people of color
Mhm.
into writing about science. So that would be pretty cool for, you to check it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can't see why they wouldn't send you there.
Right, exactly.
Now, dude, would they send you to NABJ?
So actually, yes, they cover that for me. That which one
Isn't
thing
it
that
great?
I'm very grateful for that my company covers that because everyone knows that NABJ is not cheap at all.
Well, I tell you
But,
this, it's as so I go to a lot of these medical conferences that the doctors go to,
mhm.
and I be looking at their prices for the registration. I'm like,
Oh,
some of those registrations for I mean, granted, we're talking doctors, not
right.
journalists, but their conferences be like $1,500 to register,
Woo!
twenty
Oh
five
man.
hundred, and then we ain't even talking about like the hotels. So matter of fact, I probably by the time this is airs, it'll be right before the week I'm being in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
So you know, but yeah, having NABJ, and it's really cool that being able to be at our convention and show the young up and comers, hey, there's more to it than sports. There's more to it than entertainment. There's more to it than news. There's other
Right.
jobs out here. Next thing you know, your company could be asking you to recruit.
Basically, yeah, they've told me a handful of times because we primarily deal with contracts. Anytime that we're bidding on a contract, they say, "Hey, if we get this, I'm pretty sure everyone here knows somebody. Get the word out because we'd like to see who you know and how good they may be at what they do, and maybe bring them on." So I know right now that we are working on something. Can't say exactly what because partially because I may not know exactly what. But
Right.
my company is all we're always bidding on contracts to do various things, and in the for people who are familiar with the contracting world, with more contracts means more jobs available for people, and it's an interesting game to play because being in the DMV area, you deal with federal and contracting type stuff all the time. Both my parents had been in that arena before. And so, you know that on one hand, the contracting world could get tricky at times, especially when contracts are running up. But once those contracts are set and you have the work to do, you have the work to do and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about anything else for at least that long. So I know that my company is always bidding contracts on various things, and I always want to make sure that if they tell me, hey, we might need you to help us find somebody, I'm ready to be like, okay, well, I know these people who might be interested in this. It's always it's always important to try to bring as many people as you can with you, but of course making sure that those people are quality as well because you know you never want to endorse somebody that's not gonna that's not gonna do what you think that they're gonna do, and then it makes everybody look bad.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, before I get you out of here, I gotta ask you this question. The show is
Mhm.
called Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. What was the moment that Benjamin McKnight III broke through the glass ceiling?
Oh, I would say I would say when I hit my 1 year anniversary with my job.
Okay.
So, because before then, I mean, I was never, after the first month, I was never insecure about what I was doing. It just took me a little while to warm up to everything, just because, again, I'm dealing with a field that I know nothing about outside of what somebody tells me. But once I hit that 1 year, and both my bosses from the actual company and then the people that I work for on a daily basis, hearing the compliments from them on my work, that's when I felt, okay, you know what? I could do this for a while. Because, like I mentioned earlier, this is something that it just in terms of the whole public affairs, public relation thing, that's something that I knew that I wanted to do in my army career, but I didn't know if that's something that I could do in my civilian career. And I was just so stuck on the traditional newsroom mindset. But getting this opportunity and seeing how many more things are available for me to do with the skill set that I have has been great. Because if you would have told me finishing my last year at Morgan that this is what I'd be doing now, I would have laughed in your face. Not because I thought that you were lying to me, but just because I didn't think that I'd be willing to take it.
Hmm.
But I took the opportunity. It was partially a desperation move. I will not lie, because I knew that I needed to get a job eventually. But my company treats me so well, and they they just tell me, hey, we expect you to do this, this, and this. As long as you do those things, you're good with us. And I do that and then some. And it feels good to know that I'm in a place now where I can grow and I can explore other opportunities in this world that I didn't know was around before I graduated.
That's awesome, man. I'm always happy to hear that. You know, that's what we do. Morgan State Bears in the house.
Yes, indeed. We are the Bears.
Yeah, you know it. All right, man. Well, let the people know where they can find you, such if they want to reach out to you for advice.
Most definitely. Instagram and Twitter _Benny the Jet, and LinkedIn Benjamin McKnight the Third. I think the last thing that I want to say before I go is that to everyone listening, and especially primarily to the students who may be listening, keep your options open and learn to be a jack of all trades, because I know that I have multiple skill sets and I didn't get those overnight. I've been writing for almost 10 years now. I've been doing photography for almost 10 years now. I taught myself video editing when I was at Morgan State, audio editing as well. And there's so many things that you could do with journalism related training that you don't it doesn't have to just be the Washington Post or USA Today. And sometimes there might be more money in some of these other non-traditional newsroom type settings as well. But just at the end of the day, there's many things to do, and if you pigeonhole yourself, then you may be missing out on your blessing.
Wow. You just gave a word there, bro. You left a sermon. Well,
I try.
yeah, well, Ben, I definitely appreciate you coming on. I would definitely have to have you on for an update one of these days. Again, so man, thanks for joining me on this
Hey,
episode.
hey, and I appreciate you. Keep doing this. When I first saw this, I was like, oh shoot, another podcast, because I just love binging on podcasts as
Oh,
it
okay.
is. But then seeing the unique concept that you have going on, this is great, because there's a lot of people who may need some inspiration from somebody, and it may be someone that they don't know that they need it from until they listen. So this is definitely a good thing going. Keep bringing on people to inspire other people, because we are all here to help each other.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I just thought about like one day. Think it was one day I was in Atlanta. Me and my manager was walking. Was at one of these conferences, and then I was just thinking. I said, I'm blessed to know a lot of people. I said, I want to share my network with the world.
Hey, yeah, as hey, when the network gets bigger, everyone benefits.
There you go. There you go. All right, man. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
All right.
That's the thing I love about this show is an opportunity to get to know my guests, and you learn something new every time you talk to somebody. And now learning that Ben and I are essentially in the same field, not only of journalism but also like into the science field. So I thought that was really cool. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Make sure you guys give him a follow. Coming up next week, I'm going to have Khalik Crowder. Khalik is a pop culture guru. So I'm really excited for you guys to check out this interview. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast at Breaking Through Glass Ceilings on all platforms, and make sure you follow me at Brian H. Waters and following the company B Waters Productions. Until the next time, folks, remember, don't let anybody put up a glass ceiling that you will not allow yourself to break through. Forever 824. This podcast is brought to you by B Waters Productions. It is produced and edited by myself, Brian H. Waters, with the music brought to you by Hypnosis. You can find Hypnosis on Instagram at hypno_beats.